Good evening and welcome to this fresh, brand new batch where you and I are going to start this journey together, where our goal is to reach the absolute top of what? The CAT scores, the CAT percentiles. So in this journey, if you happen to have any question, any doubt, any concern, please make sure that you share it with me so that I can go ahead and help you even more precisely. So this is the first VARC class for this batch, and for every subject the very first class will be streamed on YouTube, and all the subsequent classes are of course accessible only and only through the app. So how are you doing? Atar, as usual, is here, of course. Kabilan. So I see quite a few of our regulars who are here. So these regulars have already started their preparation. So I'm not very sure how useful it is going to be for you. Considering that this is the first class for this batch, I will actually start from absolute basics. So those of you who do not know me, my name is Vikrant. Why should you work with me? I'll give you some reasons. Number one, you should work with a teacher who's knowledgeable. Am I knowledgeable? Hell yeah. I have 100% and 100 percentile in the VARC section of the CAD exam. So that tells you that I know my stuff. Apart from that, I've been teaching for 25 years, and every year when I interact with students, work with students, I go ahead and keep doing things which are new on the basis of the input that I get from people. And consequently, I think no matter what your background is, I already know how to help you the best. And I think the reason why I think I'm a good teacher is the third one, and that is I am genuinely committed towards your preparation. So I'm easily the best teacher that you can work with, particularly if you are not that comfortable with VARC. So I can take you from 0 to that 99 percentile plus score that you are expecting, that you hope. So what we have today is an introduction to VARC. And in this process, we will also go ahead and solve some of these different questions that are asked in various entrance exams. Quite a few, in fact, I'd say majority of these questions are actually previous year questions, and that's typically the gold standard. Now, the purpose of putting you through all those questions is not to test you. The purpose is to help you figure out your existing level of comfort, and from there we can build a plan which will be very useful for you. So let's go ahead and start our work together. So introduction to VARC. Now, before I dive into this and more people join in, let's quickly run through the B school selection process. There are times when people may miss out on this. So essentially, you know that any college that you target, it will typically put you through a written exam. Almost all the colleges will also put you through a personal interview. There are some exceptions. So colleges that you get into through Maharashtra CET typically have a counseling round. SP Jain puts you through a group interview, but almost all the colleges will have a personal interview. Quite a few of them, particularly the IMs, will put you through an essay writing test which is called WAT. Then this plus means that there can be some additional, some extra things as well. So for example, there are some colleges which may put you through an extempore. There are colleges where you may have psychometric test. There are colleges which may have an entirely different exam after that. So NMIMS, Narsi Monji does that, MICA does that. So this plus basically talks about all those additional things. Then part of the process also relies on your profile. A large chunk of it is your academic profile, but beyond that you may get some marks for diversity, academic or gender based, and then you may get certain marks assigned to your work experience. So these are the things which in combination decide whether you are shortlisted and later on selected or not. So when it comes to the written exam, we of course go ahead and prepare for the CAT, but frankly speaking, I think it is foolish to focus on just the CAT exam. If you are preparing, you must strive to write a lot of other exams as well. So exams like the ZAT that open the doors to XLRI along with some more colleges, SNAP for all the symbiosis clan family of colleges. Then NMAT if you want to get into Narsi Monji, plus a few more colleges. In fact, do you know that Asian Institute of Management, Philippines, Manila, that also accepts the NMAT scores for its shortlisting. So some of those global schools too. Then you can CMAT, you can also target Maharashtra CT. In fact, if you have a Maharashtrian domicile, this is a must write exam for you. And for those of you who are targeting colleges internationally, they may also look at GMAT. But in this particular batch, I am going to focus on these. I will not really focus on GMAT. So that's significantly different, and therefore we don't really go ahead and talk about this in this particular batch. If you're focusing on GMAT, you can of course go ahead and access our GMAT specific batches. Each one of these exams asks you certain things, but since a primary focus is the CAT exam, CAT would typically give you 3 things. So what are those 3 things? Array, what happened to my animations here? What's wrong? Okay, so I'll just go ahead and write these for you. So in the CAT exam, there are 3 sections. There is a section that tests your English. It is called VARC. Then there is a section which tests you on data interpretation and logical reasoning. And then there is a section called quantitative aptitude. So this is the pattern that we have seen for the last 4 years. In fact, this is a pattern that we've actually seen for the last 5 years, where this is the total number of questions. This is the distribution of every single section. Okay, so the only tiny change that happened in CAT 24, where the questions in DILR went from 20 to 22, and every question carries 3 marks, every negative deducts 1 mark. So in a way, you have 3 sections where the exam gives you 40 minutes for each section. VARC 24 questions, DILR 22, QA 22 for the last couple of years. 2 to 4 of these are non-MCQs. In DILR, approximately 10 non-MCQs. In Quant, approximately 8 non-MCQs. The rest of them are of course MCQs. So that's how the breakup would typically look like. It can of course go ahead and change as things move forward. So now let me go ahead and focus more on the English section, the section that you and I have chosen to work with. So let us begin talking about the CAT exam. So in CAT 25, this is what we got in English. Okay, so we had 24 questions in all. Out of these 24, 16 questions depended on reading comprehension. The exam gave us 4 passages. Every passage had 4 questions, so 16 in all. But then we had 2 questions that tested our ability to figure out the best summary of the paragraph. Then a couple of questions that tested our understanding of finding out the odd sentence within a paragraph. Then para completion / sentence placement, and then Parajumbles. That was CAT 25. If you look at CAT 24, everything is the same except for this single fact that we did not have Parajumbles after a long gap. Okay. So we have that there, and then 23. Can you spot the difference now in the breakup of the questions? Not really, right? 22, I'm not really writing 22, but then you get the drift, right? So that's the CAT exam. But as I said, CAT is not the only exam that we write. We should go ahead and write the other exams too, beginning with, let us talk about ZAT. So ZAT is significantly different from the CAT exam. Let me give you the overview first. So ZAT basically has 2 distinct parts to it. Part 1 gives you 75 questions spread across these 3 sections. And unlike the CAT exam where you have sectional time limit, in the ZAT you have no sectional time limit. And the shortlisting is done by XLRI on the basis of your performance in part 1. Part 2, which contains GK questions, is used in the subsequent rounds and not at the stage of shortlisting. Now within this, you of course have a new section called decision making that will help you prepare on, but within this you have verbal ability section, verbal and logical ability section. And if I talk about that section, last year we had 5 passages with 3 questions each. Then we had 2 questions where you were given a poem and you were supposed to comprehend it, understand it. Then a couple of questions on grammar that tested your ability to identify errors. 2 parajumbles, 3 paragraph-based critical reasoning questions. And then we had 1 fill-in-the-blank question, and for the last few years, every year we get this one special question in that which gives us some sort of panel, some sort of comic panel, some sort of image which has some comment or dialogue, and we are supposed to answer the question based on that. Okay, so that's a breakup. So what is new? If you are preparing for the CAT exam, you've already taken care of RC and Parajumbles. But then what is new here? Poem comprehension, grammar, paragraph based critical reasoning, fill in the blanks, and of course this critical reasoning, critical reading phenomenon. Then if I take you to another exam called SNAP, you'd see the composition is once again significantly different. How? So now you have in the entire exam just 60 questions where every question carries 1 mark, and this exam is for 60 minutes. So 60 minutes, 60 questions, 60 marks. Out of those 60 questions, 15 belong to English, and here is the breakup of your English questions. So quite a few of the questions are based on grammar, and then you get some vocabulary based questions, and then you get some figure of speech based questions. This composition can change, but then this is the broad idea. Now what is significantly different here? You notice no reading comprehension whatsoever, no RCs. Okay, so those of us who feel, I'm not good at RCs, what would I do? Here is an exam for you which plays to your strengths. And then I'll talk about one last exam, because once you cover these 4, you are prepared for everything else, and that is NMAT. So NMAT has a significantly different approach. So in the CAT exam you get 40 minutes, but in the NMAT you get 28 minutes. So in the CAT exam, in those 40 minutes, you were supposed to answer 24 questions, but in the NMAT, you're supposed to answer 36 questions. So the equation has flipped now, you notice. And on top of that, NMAT is a computer adaptive test. Any guesses what that means? And I'll take some questions in the interim. So let's go ahead and start answering those things. So what do we have? Aditya purchased the course but unable to watch videos on the app. Aditya, if you have enrolled in this particular batch, I think this is the first class of the batch, and the first class is happening exclusively on YouTube, but every subsequent class will happen on the app. My subsequent class, every faculty member's first class will be on the app, on YouTube, and then the rest of them on the app. Ajay, once again, if this is the batch that you have enrolled in, then the first class is happening on YouTube. Every other class will be on the app. I am Akash says Pro MBA. No, if you have a Pro plan, you'll definitely be able to enroll for this batch. Talk to the team and they'll help you figure it out. Shilpi, absolutely yes, Shilpi, that's the deal. Pradeep says, sir, is it too late to start for the CAT exam? No, I won't call it too late, but I will say that, okay, you're just in time. Just in time in the sense that, see, I have seen people prepare for 3 months and they end up getting an amazing, great score, great percentile. So let's not forget this one thing. These are all aptitude exams. And what exactly do we mean by an aptitude? Aptitude is a natural ability to do something, which means that nature has already given you this ability. Now, for some people, they have polished this ability and they're already at an advanced stage. Some have not polished this ability and therefore they may not be at that advanced stage. So the kind of effort that is required from you is obviously going to be different because of that. But the truth is, you already have what it takes. So if you are starting in the month of April, you still have sufficient time. Even if you start from scratch, even if your ability is not very well developed. It is particularly true for VARC. So as the time goes by, so let us say somebody starts in June, July, August, there are going to be people who start then. But then if they are not that great at VARC, they may eventually start struggling. They may not be able to devote enough time. But if you're starting today, think absolutely all right, no problem at all whatsoever. Ashish says that this means I can't watch on app the first 3 lectures. Ashish, once I take this class, this will also become available on the app, but yes, you are not going to be able to watch it live. There must have been some technical reason behind it, because until last month, the batch was primarily run on the app, and we also of course screened it simultaneously on YouTube, but then it became it made it difficult for us to cater to the chat at both the places. A faculty member cannot really look at 2 places, yaar, na? I cannot keep switching between 2 different chat boxes, so therefore I think we must have taken this call. But then so is it a good time? Absolutely yes. Okay, now let's look at the breakup. So breakup of questions. Now, do you see anything new here now? When we moved from CAT to ZAT, we did come across something new. When we moved from ZAT to SNAP, we once again saw something new. Figure of speech, more vocabulary based questions. But then when you move from SNAP to NMAT, there is absolutely nothing that is new. The only change is that, in terms of test taking strategy. Why? So this is a computer adaptive test. What it means is that, no, Pradeep, difficulty level, well, maybe you're answering the question correctly, but let's see. So in the NMAT exam, when you answer a question, there are 2 possibilities. You answer it correctly or incorrectly. Now, if you answer it correctly, the next question that you get has a higher difficulty level on the other, and carries more marks. On the other hand, if you get it wrong, the next question is going to be easier and will carry fewer marks. It will carry less weightage. So therefore, it is important for you to attempt every question. Unlike these other exams, you cannot skip questions in NMAT. So there are 2 things, right? So one of these things is syllabus, what all it is that you need to do, and alongside that you need to develop something called a test taking strategy. So a combination of these 2 things will ensure that you are able to perform and get a great score. So if you prepare for these 4 exams, after that, no matter which exam you write, you will not have to cover something new. You will not have to discover a new test taking strategy, because these 4 among themselves capture everything. Okay, so that's basically how it goes on to work. Okay, then what else? Let me take some more questions now. Saurabh, I think I've addressed why it is not running on the app. Are we preparing for all these exams? Absolutely yes, Shreya. So you will have a main batch which will cover everything which is asked in the CAT exam. Now, when it comes to these other exams, non-CAT exams, we call them OMETs. So what we'll do is that we will start another session in parallel to that, another batch in parallel to that, which will take care of all these additional things. Okay, Rajkumar, it's absolutely okay. Even if you're not that comfortable, you can always start today and start executing the plan that we have. Okay, Manas, I want to enter IIM. Should I focus only on the CAT? Manas, if you want to get into an IIM, obviously you need to write the CAT. But I used a very strong statement 5 minutes ago, where I said that if you are preparing for the CAT, it will be foolish not to appear for these other exams. We can talk about why I'm calling that behavior foolish, but then frankly, you'll do well if you go ahead and cover and prepare for every exam. Ankush, I just talked to Rajkumar about that same thing. If you're not, so at the end of the day, if you say I am not good at English, what does it mean? Let's say if I come to you and I tell you that I'm not good at quant, what does that mean? All it means is that I need to work harder on quant. If you can master quant in say 200 hours, I may need to devote 300 hours, 400 hours, 600 hours. That's about it. So the question is, am I willing to put in those hours in order to master it? If yes, then it is immaterial whether I am good at it or bad at it today. Are you willing to put in the effort? If yes, we'll definitely go ahead and work. Right? Okay, so let's go ahead and check. So that's NMAT, but that was English. NMAT also has a logical reasoning section. which gives us 36 questions, and almost half of these questions are verbal reasoning questions. These are questions that you and I are going to work together on, and here you see the breakup of the verbal reasoning questions. So I'd also help you cover these different question types. So that's basically it. Okay, so now that we have seen all the different exams, let's begin to talk about the syllabus. My stories. Okay, what else, let me just once again go ahead and answer some questions at this juncture. I believe you yourself volunteered for taking the English course. Freak Bob, I could not understand that. Is it a class for the CAT exam? Absolutely yes. We've started this new batch called MBA Pioneer English Medium. So you know that we have two variants, right? So there are batches which are English, and then this is our first batch which is exclusively in English. So you are attending the very first lecture of VARC of that particular batch, yes. Apart from academics, which skills should you focus on? Others, I already have a video that talks about building a profile on YouTube. You can go ahead and watch that, and we can do that. What would we learn in OMETs, sir? Anvesha, everything that is not covered in the CAT. So those things. OMET lectures would be taken after CAT. No, not really, not after the CAT exam, and I'll tell you the reason. NMAT exam begins in October, whereas CAT happens in November. So we definitely need to cover everything which is asked in the NMAT and SNAP before. So we will, in another 4 to 6 weeks, we will start OMET classes as well, which basically means that every week you typically have 5 to 6 classes happening once those sessions start. 5, 6, 7 classes every week. Okay. Kabilan, you will be able to check that. Don't worry. So let's go ahead. So what is the first thing that we do when we start a preparation? We look at the syllabus. Now that I've told you about all these different exams that you need to prepare for, let me give you a bird's eye view of VARC for competitive exams. So when I talk about the English syllabus, it is a pyramid, and this pyramid has 5 blocks in it. So in a way, I can tell you that when it comes to VARC, there are going to be 5 modules that you need to prepare for. So what are those 5 modules? You have verbal reasoning, then you have vocabulary, then grammar, reading comprehension, and verbal ability. So if I talk about all the exams, CAT plus OMETs, these are the 5 things that we need to work on. And you notice that it is a pyramid. This structure tells you that there is a connection, there is a relationship among all the 5 modules. What's that relationship? Any module that you pick up also requires you to master the modules that are given below. For example, if I talk about, say, reading comprehension, do you think reading comprehension requires vocabulary? Of course, yes. If you do not understand the meanings of all the words which are used in that passage or in the questions after the passage, will you be able to confidently answer those questions? Will you be able to confidently understand the passage? There are no guarantees, right? So every module requires the knowledge of everything that is below plus something more. So in order to become excellent at RC, you require grammar, vocab, VR, and then you go ahead and do certain RC specific things. So verbal reasoning as a result is practically the foundation of the entire course. Anybody who is not good at verbal reasoning cannot really have an above average score in the CAT or the ZAT exam. You can still survive in SNAP, but when it comes to the CAT and the ZAT, and maybe even NMAT, no. Then vocabulary is a knowledge based area, grammar is a knowledge based area, and you need to start working on these two. Reading comprehension is predominantly a skill based area, whereas any question type that cannot be put exclusively into these 4 boxes, these 4 modules, we put that in this 5th box called verbal ability. So you can think of this as a miscellaneous area. Anything that does not belong to these 4 exclusively goes here. So what kind of question types would you have here? You know, all those parajumbles, paragraph odd one outs, verbal analogy, all those question types will be here. And this is mostly going to be a technique based area. So you become good at the bottom four, then you add, then you combine it with the right technique and you start becoming excellent in these question types. Okay. Okay, then, oh, there is a very interesting question. Tanvi says, do we need to give some extra time except for the classes? Okay, let us check. Tanvi, you notice I have written a word here, and the word is, it's a skill-based area. What is your understanding of a skill? How do you define a skill? Or maybe you can give me an example of something that we call a skill. Okay, give me that example. Shrishti, absolutely, yeah, it is a batch for beginners. Pavan, what do you want to know about Maharashtra CT? Go ahead and ask. Yash, apart from the 500 new words PDF provided, should we refer to? Yash, I will take a vocabulary strategy session class in the batch. I'll talk about this there. Will I teach whole VARC? Saurabh, in this batch, I'm going to cover the entire VARC. Be positive, attend the classes. I'll keep talking, I'll keep sharing those things with you. When will the English batch start? I think we started our last batch very recently, I think some 3 weeks ago. There should be a new batch in the pipeline starting in another 4-5 weeks, I hope. My Stories Hub, please don't talk about reading. If people understood that, then we could have convincing skills, negotiation skills. Acha, can I pick up something simpler? Can I? Right before your class, I was walking downstairs where I noticed some children working with a badminton coach. So can I say playing badminton is a skill? Can I say playing badminton is a skill? Now tell me, the coach comes in, teaches certain things to those students, right? Now, if that student does not work on those things in between the two classes, will that person become a better badminton player? If the only place where that person picks up the racket is during those coaching sessions and not anywhere else, will that person become an excellent badminton player? So when it comes to anything which is skill based, you need to practice. If you don't practice, you do not become excellent, you do not become a champion. So do you need to? Yes. Then when it comes to knowledge based areas, most of the things that you studied back in school, back in college were knowledge based. Did you have to study outside of the classes? Yes, because you had to revise things, because you had to retain things. You had to ensure that you memorize those. So just like school and college, when it comes to knowledge based area, do you have to study outside? Absolutely yes. So on the whole, yes, you do need to devote time outside of the classes, as much time as you possibly can. And by the end of this class, you will have this absolute clarity about what exactly it is that you need to do and for how long. Okay, so let's move on. Let's take each one of these things one by one and then talk. So starting with verbal reasoning, the syllabus. Okay, so you need to know about deductive and inductive arguments, then syllogisms, logical connectives, paragraph based critical reasoning, FIJ questions, statement assumption, statement conclusion, strong and weak arguments. So you need to go ahead and master these 8 chapters in VR. Okay, now some of these exams will test you on verbal reasoning directly. So when I talk about NMAT, Maharashtra CET, ZAT, you have direct questions based on some of these areas. The CAT will also test you on these things, but indirectly. In CAT, you are tested on this, but it is a part of reading comprehension. Okay, so let me ask you a couple of questions. So here is the first one. Why don't you go ahead and answer this question? I'll start a timer and let's see how you approach it. Once you share an answer, we'll go ahead and talk. Yashika, that is something that we will talk about in this batch. and I will give you a plan for a beginner. I'll give you enough to start with today. Okay, so I see a lot of answers coming my way. That's fantastic. Okay, so a lot of B's, a C, anything else, any other answer choice? A, B. So I got A, I got B, I got C. Any other option that I missed out on? Anything else? Okay, now this is a very important question type from the perspective of our exam. So when you prepare for the CAT and you start solving reading comprehension passages, you'll notice this particular question type appearing very frequently. A question which asks you which of the following can be inferred from the passage. Which of the following has been implied by the author? If the information given in the passage is true, which of the following must be true? Which of the following the author is most likely to agree with? So all of these questions which appear very frequently test you on the ability that this question tests you on. Okay, I also see D as an answer from somebody. So let's start. Which of the following? So basically, in fact, if I talk about that, in 2024 XAT exam, we had 10 questions of this variety in the section. 10. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at it. Which of the following can be reliably concluded on the basis of the statements given? So since I saw B from most of us, we'll start there. So let's see. A medieval manuscript called L contains all 18 extant tragedies by the Greek playwright Euripides. So there is a manuscript. Manuscript is something which is handwritten. Medieval talks about the time period. What is the name of this manuscript? L. What does it have? It contains all 18 extant. Now you notice, I told you when it comes to reading comprehension, vocabulary is needed, right? So, do you know the meaning of the word extant? If yes, just drop it down quickly. What is the meaning of the word extant? You have 10 seconds. Extent basically refers to something which is surviving, something which is available even today, which is in existence. Okay, so 18 tragedies. So tragedies basically 18 stories or novels that were tragedies by the Greek playwright. Of these, 10 called the select plays are accompanied in L by ancient commentaries and also appear in other medieval manuscripts. So there are 18 in total. Let's divide them into two groups. 10 of these have commentaries. They are also available in other manuscripts. Then what about the remaining 8? This group includes some of Euripides' best known works. It contains some of his best known works. Okay, including the media. So including the media. So let's put media here as well. The other 8 which appear only in L, so they are not found anywhere else. They are just in this manuscript. They are called alphabeticals because they appear in alphabetical order without commentary. Okay, so there is no commentary either. The Electra is one of the alphabeticals. There you go. So that's what we know. Let's begin with B since most of us wrote B. The select plays are accompanied by ancient commentaries because they were the best known of Euripides' works. Now, are the select plays accompanied by ancient commentaries? True. But look at this because is designed to provide a reason. It is designed to provide a justification. So we know that the select works happen to have commentaries. But what is the reason for these commentaries? Is the reason this that they were the best known of Euripides' works? Now, let me tell you something. All the 10 have commentaries. Can you say that each one of these 10s is the best work of Euripides? No. Why? What does the paragraph tells us? It contains some of his best known works. It contains some of his best known works. Are all the 10 best known? No. Maybe one of these is best known, maybe 5 of these are best known, we are not sure. But each one of these has a commentary. So if the reason for a commentary is best known, then all the 10, then why is it that all the 10 have commentaries? There can be a scenario where only 1 or 2 of these are best known. So this reason, this because part is something that cannot be determined. So the first half is true, the second half is can't say or cannot be determined, and therefore the final label will be can't say. So can we conclude it reliably? No, we cannot. Let's switch over to A. Only Euripides' best known works are accompanied by ancient commentaries in extant medieval manuscripts. Can't say. So what I know from this is that some of Euripides' works have commentaries. But then, is he the only author? There are going to be other authors. So are we saying that none of the other authors from medieval times has a story which has a commentary along with that? No. Maybe the other authors have commentaries along with their works. Maybe they don't. We don't know, so can't say. How about C? No commentaries were written about Euripides' Electra in ancient times. Dude, true, false, can't say. So Electra is one of the alphabeticals. Electra does not have a commentary in this particular manuscript. Electra is also not found in any other manuscript. Does that mean that Electra did not have a commentary? How about this? Somebody wrote a commentary for Electra and then that commentary got lost with the time. Somebody wrote a commentary, but then commentary got lost. I mean, remember medieval period. So it's possible that there was a commentary. It's just that it has no longer survived. So we cannot say that no commentaries were written. It's possible that commentaries were written, but they were lost. They did not survive and therefore can't say. Let's look at D. Euripides Electra does not appear accompanied by a commentary in any extant medieval manuscript. Yes. Why? Because the only manuscript that Electra is in is L, and in L it does not have a commentary. So there is no surviving manuscript where you see Electra with a commentary. That is true. So of the four, which one can now be concluded? So how, once again, the justification is Electra is part of alphabeticals. Is part of those 8 stories that appear only in L. It is not there in any other extant manuscript. And these 8, including Electra, they don't have any commentary. So is there any extant manuscript where you see Electra apart from L? No. This is the only manuscript. In this, does it have a commentary? No. So from this, can I say Electra does not appear accompanied by a commentary in any extant medieval manuscript? Yes. So you realize this is a question type that asks us to be very precise. You notice when I ruled out these answer choices, we moved ahead in a very structured fashion where we looked at the utility or the usefulness of every single word. And that's the level that we need to train ourselves for this particular question type. And we'll go ahead and work on this. I'll train you to think along these lines. Here is the next one. Why don't you try this? I'll give you 3 questions from verbal reasoning because it's very important for the CAT exam, and then we will move on. When you move over to the app, we'd of course have a poll feature. You will be using that. On YouTube, go ahead and put your answers in the chat. Are Neeru, that happens. I know. I can understand. It's okay. All right, so I see option C, option D, a lot of different answers coming in. Okay, so once the time is up, I'll go and share my answer. Now, this is a difficult question, okay? By no means an easy question. The correct answer is D. Now, I'm not discussing it. Remember, it's a diagnostic test, so it tells you that whether you need to work on a particular area or not and how comfortable or uncomfortable you feel while solving a particular question. So let me just see what has the majority chosen apart from D. I can go ahead and explain that. Okay, so C is picked up by a lot of people. So I'll just explain C. I'm not getting into A or B. We can pick it up later once I have taught you this question type. Unless I teach these things to you, how would I even explain it, right? The new antibiotic has been shown to be effective in eradicating bacterial infections other than strep. See, look at this particular argument. It is talking about only strep infections. And the conclusion here is that if we move over to this new antibiotic, we'll have reduced instances of strep infections. We'll have we'll have the chances of reinfection will be less. But reinfection through what? Strep. So whether it works on strep plus something else is immaterial for this particular argument. So such options are called irrelevant or outside of scope. Okay, but once again, because I have not taught this area to you, I am constrained by the structure that I need to use. I don't have that structure. Uh, uh, Let me just reframe it. So when I teach these to you, I tell you how to approach these question types in a systematic manner, because I've not taught that to you. I've not even taught you to analyze the arguments. I think explanation will be a little premature. So if you are somebody who's already started preparation, is thinking of it as practice, go ahead, practice. You know the right answer, and I've also explained why a particular option is wrong. But if you could not understand this or the previous question for that matter, don't worry. Once we start learning these things formally, we'll do better. So what exactly is our preparation plan now? So let me share. So in verbal reasoning, I do not want you to do anything on your own at the moment. Okay, just follow along these classes, and in those classes, the plan that I share with you, when I ask you to do something after the class, just make sure that you go ahead and do that, and everything will be taken care of. Now let's move over to our next module, vocabulary. Now when it comes to vocabulary, can we really have something called a syllabus? I mean, not really, but even then, I can tell you a couple of things. Your goal is to learn high frequency words. What are high frequency words? These are words which are used quite often in the world around us, especially in formal situations. So these are words that are there in the newspapers, that are there in the news channels, but you do not know their meanings. So your job is to learn these words, and apart from that, you would want to learn the techniques that allow you to answer different questions. And once you've mastered the technique, you'd of course also like to practice. So what kind of questions come and what not? Let me just go ahead and give you a brief idea. Here is a question which was asked in the ZAT exam. So what's your take on this? Which answer would you like to mark here? So ZAT has 5 options. So I've just picked up a question from the ZAT. Go ahead and share your answer with me. G Y Y Y Y U U U. No, sorry, G Y Y Y Y U U and U for Q. Read that option D carefully when the class gets over. You would notice that it does not talk about how many days it takes to heal. All it says is when people feel that they have gotten better. What you feel may or may not be right. Okay. Ashish, I very clearly gave my reason of not discussing it today, and therefore we'll skip it. Once we go through our class on strengthening and weakening or the arguments, we can always revisit this question then if you feel like. Okay, the correct answer to this particular question is option E. So what you've just experienced is a ZAT 2020 question. Some of us have picked up C, some of us have picked up D. Let us check. A map is a useful metaphor for our brain when talking about understanding, comprehension, connections, design, perception. Just see whether you can eliminate some of these options on the basis of the first blank or not. Because at its most basic level, our brain progressed to be an atlas of sorts, metamorphosed to be an atlas of sorts, changed to be an atlas of sorts. So you notice these can be eliminated, this can go in here, developed can go in here, evolved can go in here. So A and B can definitely be eliminated at this juncture itself. A system of routes molded to navigate, shaped to navigate, designed to navigate. Which one of these goes with to navigate, and that would have helped you zero in on the best answer here. So multiple ways. So E it is. Okay, and then of late the cat does not ask us vocabulary based questions of late, but the truth is there was a time when even the cat exam had such questions. Here is another question which is based on the cat. So this is an actual cat PYQ. You are given 5 sentences. Each one of these sentences gives you a choice between 2 words, and you need to figure out which word is the most suitable one for each one of these sentences. So for instance, in the first sentence, let us say it is A, then you'll choose straight away option D. But on the other hand, if it is B, you're looking for B as your first letter. So why don't you go ahead, answer this question. We have 90 seconds. In case there is any confusion with respect to the question, please ask. If you don't know what to do, please ask. Okay, let's see what we have gone on to choose. So I see option A, option C, option D. Ishita, in each one of these sentences, you're supposed to decide which one of these 2 words is correct. And then choose the letter, the corresponding letter in the answer choices. Of course, in the exam, you get detailed instructions. And here I've skipped those detailed instructions because we were anyway working together. And I just wanted to give you an exposure. So let's start. Hopefully you'll understand it. So Anita wore a beautiful A or B on the lapel of her jacket. What is the meaning of this word? Broach basically means to initiate, to start, particularly a difficult conversation. For example, let us say that I'm dating somebody. And I have made up my mind now that this other person is not the right person for me, and I need to sit down with that person and tell that person that, dude, things are not working out. It's going to be a difficult conversation. So if I initiate it, if I start it, then I broach the topic of our separation. So you know what broach means? What is this broach? You remember those decorative pins that people put on their coat or their saris? That decorative piece of jewelry is brooch. So here, because we are talking about something on the lapel of the jacket, it has to be brooch. So for the first sentence, I need B. So option D gets ruled out. How about the second sentence? If you want to complain about the amenities in your neighborhood, please meet your counselor or counselor. What is the difference? Which word do we need? So counselor is somebody who works with your municipal council. So an elected representative who is part of a council is called councillor. So in the cities you have municipalities, or to be more precise, municipal councils. Anybody who's a part of the council is a councillor. Who's a councillor? A councillor is somebody who gives you advice. So because you are talking about complain about the facilities in your neighborhood, I think this is the territory of a municipality. You're not going to somebody for advice. You are going to a representative who is supposed to take care of these things, and that is why in the second sentence we need counselor and not counselor. So A. So another reason why option D gets ruled out. See, I would like your advice or advice. What is the difference between these two? Advice with a C is a noun, whereas advice with an S is a verb. So the question is, what do we need here, a noun or a verb? A noun. What I need here is a noun, so I need A here. So option A and B get ruled out, and option C is going to be the right answer. So there you go. Climactic is related to the climax. You know, movies have a climax. So if you talk about the climax, you can say that the climactic scene had amazing stunts, amazing VFX, right? That part. And climatic is related to climate, then flair and flare. FLAIR, flair is a natural ability or an attractive quality in a person, whereas this flare can refer to a sudden combustion or the broadening. So anyway, we reached out option C. So this is a question that tested us on confusibles, and mind you, actual CAT question. These kind of things. I told you at the beginning that I'm going to give you a lot of questions which were actually PYQs. Here is one more. So please answer it in 1 minute and your time starts now. You don't even need this 1 minute. Rati, you are absolutely right. Once we've ruled out option D, all ABC had A, so we did not even need to bother. Yep. So I think that's about time. So I see B and D given so far. The correct answer is B. Generous, hopefully you already know what generous is. Misogynist is a person who hates or opposes marriage. Somebody who hates, avoids, or opposes marriage. And who's a misandrist? It's a woman who hates men. So a woman who hates men is a misandrist. Or a woman who believes that women are better than men. You can once again label her a misandrist. No. Hates mankind is misanthrope. Okay, Rati? So I hope that helps. So that takes care of vocabulary. Now what are you supposed to do for vocabulary? So wait for my vocabulary strategy session. It will happen next week. But until then, in the next 7 days, make sure that you devote 15 to 30 minutes to vocabulary every day, using whichever method, technique or strategy that you're aware of. And in our vocab strategy session, I will go ahead and talk about these various things in greater detail. I'll talk about the different question types that get asked and the different tools that we can use. But until then, please make sure that you got Yashkor. Absolutely, it is the opposite of somebody who engages in misogyny. Absolutely, yes. Misogyny is used quite often. Misandry is not used that often. Yeah. Okay. So now you know. I've already added one thing to your calendar. What is that? 15 to 30 minutes of vocabulary every day. Then grammar. So the questions that we get in grammar are predominantly based on our ability to identify grammatical errors. But then when I talk about SNAP in particular, we also get some questions that test our understanding of the basic principles of grammar, the foundations of grammar. So SNAP can give us questions asking us to pick up the part of speech, or identify the type of sentence, etc. Right? Yash, what did I share with you on the last slide? What did you see here? So I really appreciate your question, yes, but I think I've already answered it. So what is the syllabus? So there are 8 different parts of speech that we need to master. Then there are 6 different elements of sentence that we need to know about. Then there is a topic called subject-verb agreement and a topic called parallelism. So if I combine it, although it says 1, 2, 3, 4, the truth is we are talking about becoming really good at 16 chapters. So you need to go ahead and master these 16 chapters. And once you do that, you will be able to answer questions like these. So this is an actual XAT question for you. So why don't you go ahead and answer this? Let me start the timer nonetheless. Let's see. Okay, so let me go ahead and deal with this. Let's work on this. The correct answer is option B. A lot of us have picked up option E, but then have you heard of something called modals or modal auxiliary verbs? My teachers back in school, those poor fellows, they used to mispronounce it. You know why? Because if the correct pronunciation is models, now if the teacher walks in and says models, then all of us will think about models, but they're not going to be these models. They are going to be those other attractive models. So my teacher used to come in and say modals, right? So one of the models, remember can, could, would, should, may, might, those types. So one such modal auxiliary verb is had, better. So better had is not the correct modal, so you can rule these out. Now the problem with A and C is that, come to think of it, it is a model. The had here does not turn it into perfect tense. Remember this other model. Let me give you this other model. Have to. Now what do I say? I have to go or gone. Well, let's add the third one too. What do I use in the sentence? I have to go, I have to went, I have to gone. What do we use? We use go. Why go? Now somebody may walk in and say, "Yaar, look at the have." Have basically means that it is your perfect tense, and in perfect tense you use the third form of the verb. But no, it becomes perfect tense when it acts as a helping verb. Here it is not your regular helping verb, it is a modal auxiliary verb. The sentence remains present tense. Similarly, had better is a modal auxiliary verb. Your sentence remains a present tense sentence. The problem that a lot of us have here is that in our everyday life, we have stopped using had in this model. We just use better. You better do this. But the correct version is you had better do this. Okay? So, there you go. Shishir says, from where are we going to study vocabulary? Shishir, I will, this answer requires roughly around 60 minutes. So, because it is a longer answer, I've answered it in this class called vocabulary strategy session. This class will be scheduled in a few days for you, and I'll give this answer there. So you get the drift. That is why B, the told here in A and C was wrong. Okay. So there you go. Okay, here is another question. This actually is a CAT 2005 question. Fairly challenging. Take 90 seconds and answer this. The directions are on the top. You are supposed to choose the ones which are grammatically correct. Go ahead. Let the time run on the top. Gives us a better feel. No, Anvesha, it was not because of the infinite there. It's not infinitive, it's called to infinitive. But the verb there was not a part of a to infinitive structure. The to goes with have and not with the verb. So, if you got this right because of that logic, well, the logic was flawed, although it did lead to the right answer. It can and lead you to making a mistake somewhere else. Okay, so the correct answer to this particular question, 90 seconds are up. The correct answer is B. Why B? We needed an article before this noun. You know, singular countable nouns are mostly used with an article before them. So you needed either an a or a the. Given a choice, when I read all the 4 sentences, I'd prefer the. But without an article, it's definitely wrong. And similarly, look at this. Single-minded focus needs an a here. A single-minded focus. Sooner or later, the members break through their own egocentrism and become a plurality with a single-minded focus on the goal. So, B and C both had a problem with articles. That is why they were wrong, and that is why A and D are chosen as our answers. Now, what are you supposed to do for grammar? Let's start. Pick up any basic book of grammar. Here are 2 recommendations. You can use Wren and Martin. You can use S.P. Bakshi. These are 2 of the most popular books around us. So pick up any of these 2 books. Now your job is to read this book twice. Yes, you heard me right. We are supposed to read this book 2 times over. Okay. And let me also decide the pace. I want you to read at least 7 pages every day, because if you read it at this particular pace, you will be able to wrap it up in around 100 days. It will take you roughly 100 days and you'd be done. Rati says they are boring. You're absolutely right. Your grammar is boring. True that. But then, who said that preparing for B school exams is going to be like watching a thrilling, captivating Netflix show? Nobody said that to you. Did anyone say this to you? Are they boring? Absolutely yes. I'm telling you, most of the things that we do for exams, most of the things that we do for studies, most of us are going to find those things boring. And the truth is, if you want to strive for excellence, you need to accept boring. Okay? So that's your goal. And after that, once you have read this book twice, you will switch over to regular mixed bag practice sessions. Ishita, as long as it is a book that is designed to teach you grammar, yes. But when you say, can I read 7 pages of anything? I mean, unless it's a book of grammar, how would you really go ahead and become better at grammar then? Right? So there you go. So that's for grammar. Okay. Number 3, VA. So when it comes to verbal ability, the CAT exam gives us these 4 question types. So these are asked in the CAT as well as the other management exams. And then there are some more question types, fill in the blanks, verbal analogy, odd one out. These are asked only in the OMETs, which basically means that 1, 2, 3 and 4 are going to be covered in a regular batch. 5, 6 and 7 are going to be covered in that extra OMET batch. Okay. So for instance, let me give you a couple of questions. So the first one is a parajumble. Those of us who are not aware, in a parajumble, the examiner gives us 4 or 5 sentences which are jumbled. They are taken from a paragraph, but they are not in the right order, the right sequence. And the examiner asks us to figure out the right sequence. For the last few years, in the CAT exam, these questions have been non-MCQs, and therefore you don't get any option. So here is a question for you. Why don't you arrange these 4 to form a coherent, logical paragraph out of the 4? Go on, tell me what the right sequence must be. Most of the people, when they reach the exams, they are able to answer it in around 2.5 minutes. So I'm giving you 2 minutes today. Let's see. Okay, so a lot of answers. What makes me very happy is the speed at which these answers have come in. Amazing, huh? The speed is absolutely brilliant. It's a different story that so far I have seen only so far there is only one right answer. Two right answers. So Manvita, Niharika have gotten this right. Shilpi has gotten this right. Abhinandan has gotten this right. So yeah, I mean, once again, I want to remind you that this is a diagnostic. Okay, the correct sequence is 3, 1, 2, 4. A lot of us were not very sure of 1, 2 or 2, 1. Some of us have also put 4 sooner. So we need to, of course. I'm not really going to tell you why 3124. Please wait for the class on Parajumbles. But those of us who have started practicing, that is a clue. Okay. These directives is a clue. So, and then of course you need to go ahead, look at the idea presented in second and then see where exactly it goes. So Rati says 3 for pair nahi hai. No, it's not a pair. 4 should come after 3 is what you can definitely say, but they're not getting connected. Now come to think of it, if you use 3 and then 4 and then 1, then who does this they refer to? Is there anything in 4 that this they can refer to? No. The only noun that this they can refer to is these. So if you put 4 before 1, you've lost the reference of they. And that is why you need to have 1 coming afterwards. Same goes for 2, 1. If you put 2 before 1, once again, the only plural noun that you have is civil servants. But then these civil servants are being allowed to return to work. They've not been told to lay cease. Plus, how do you justify this also? You need to give them some instruction. It's only after that that you would be able to use also. So they have directions to do this. They have also been told to. So they have been told to do X. They have also been told to do Y. So 3 plus 1. Okay. And then 2 and 4, because 2 talks about those actions which are designed to ensure that they don't get bad publicity. It's 2, 4. 3, 1, 2, 4. But once we start working on Parajumbles, we'll of course go ahead and talk about these things in greater detail. Similarly, we get this question type called paragraph odd one out. Hang on, I need to fix this. Why did I forget? How could I forget this? Just give me a second, I'll fix it. So in paragraph odd one out, the examiner basically gives us a few sentences, and these sentences, now ostensibly I'll give you the directions. What the examiner says is that you've been given 5 sentences, 4 of these belong to the same paragraph, whereas 1 does not belong to that particular paragraph. And our job is to pick up the sentence which does not belong to that paragraph. That is why it is called paragraph odd one out. Here is the question. Let me start the timer and then we will proceed. Shoot. Atharv, I do not really see a question from you here, so I did not answer. Plus, I mean, for the purpose of this class, I know that you're already at an advanced level. Since I'm primarily addressing those who are just about starting today, I'm obviously focusing a little more on those guys. Huh? Okay, so I'm getting 1, I'm getting 2, I'm getting 4. Loads of different answers. Now, the thing is, this question that I've given to you, this is a CAT 2020 slot 1, if I remember it correctly, slot 1 question, and the correct answer going by the official key was 3. What do we have to do in this? Here are 5 sentences. 4 of these belong to the same paragraph. 1 does not. So our job was to choose that odd one out. And don't worry, later on I'll go ahead and teach all of these things to you, but I'm just introducing. Remember, it's also going to be diagnostic in nature, where you'd at least be able to figure out how comfortable or uncomfortable you are. So 1, 2, 4, 5 get connected together somehow. 3 does not. When the class gets over, do sit down with this question again and then think how these are linked with each other. This work, this realization, more specifically, all of these are clues. And they'd help you connect some of these sentences together. But the correct one is 3. And here, one last verbal ability question. It's called best summary question. In these questions, the examiner gives us a paragraph. The paragraph is followed by 4 alternate summaries of that paragraph. And our job is to choose the best summary of the lot as our answer. So you'll read the paragraph and then you'll go to the answer choices and you'll start eliminating and pick up the best one of the lot. Let me start the timer for you. Bhavini, I don't know. Of course we can discuss it. Once I've taught you best summary questions, we can discuss it in that particular class. Freak, the other 4 do not necessarily form a paragraph. So when it comes to odd one out, we don't really get into the job of arranging the other 4. Don't do that, otherwise you will reduce your ability to solve the odd one out questions fast. Okay, so we have A, we have B. I am pro Pujan. Will there be DPP? Pujan, DPP is given only for those sessions where we go ahead and teach you a new topic, a new question type. Okay, so this is an introductory class. We won't have a DPP getting released after this. We'll have DPPs where new question types are getting discussed. So this is again a PYQ taken from the CAT exam. The answer according to the official key was option A. What is your answer today? So we picked up D. A lot of us have actually picked up D. Let's see. For nearly a century, most psychologists have embraced one view of intelligence. Individuals are born with more or less intelligence potential called IQ. This potential is heavily influenced by heredity, difficult to alter. Experts in measurement can determine a person's intelligence early in life, currently from paper and pencil measures, perhaps eventually from examining the brain in action or even scrutinizing his or her genome. Recently, criticism for this conventional wisdom has mounted. Biologists ask if speaking of a single entity called intelligence is coherent, and question the validity of measures used to estimate heritability of a trait in humans who, unlike plants or animals, are not conceived and bred under controlled conditions. So look at D. Biologists have started questioning psychologists' view of intelligence as a measurable, immutable characteristics of an individual. So a lot of us actually went on to pick up D. But then look at it in a very subtle manner. This is a question type which tests your comprehension levels rather extensively. For nearly a century, most psychologists have embraced one view of intelligence. So when you embrace something, it means that you accept something, right? Well, look at D. It says biologists have started questioning psychologists' view of intelligence. Now think of it, it is a view that a lot of psychologists have embraced. Does that mean that it is psychologists' view? Moreover, when you say experts in measurement can determine, are these experts psychologists? So you notice this very subtle, very tiny thing. So this part of D is wrong. Ishan, excellent question. Let me change your POV slightly. If you want to choose one of these, which one would you choose? Which one is better than A? Now, Pradeep, I mean, when I say DPP, what you get after this class is mostly diagnostic. Oh, I don't even think of it as DPP because unless you go ahead and study these questions, it won't really be very relevant for you. There is a mixed bag test that I have scheduled after this class, but I'd rather call it a diagnostic than a DPP. It's not designed for practice, so to say. So which one would you pick up then? So I know that D has mentioned something which is not there in the paragraph. Then let's look at C. Biologists have criticized that conventional wisdom that individuals are born with more or less intelligence, but have they how do you know it is conventional wisdom? Plus, you notice that there are a lot of other things that it misses out on. It also suffers from what we call deletion. So, of course, once I teach this, we'll go into these nuances. So, A. So, what are you supposed to do for verbal ability? Two things that I can tell you to start straight away. Please make sure that you start reading and you start writing. Even if you write for 5 minutes a day, it's absolutely all right. And after that, there are 4 different question types that get asked in the CAT exam. Treat each one of these as a chapter that you are supposed to learn, master, and then move over to the next one. And when you work on these, this is the order in which I want you to work on these. But then you remember that pyramid. You remember that pyramid where verbal ability was at the top. Now imagine that you are not good at RC, that you make a lot of mistakes in RCs. What does that tell us? It tells us that we are not able to comprehend things well. So if you are not good at RC and you start with VA, what will happen? You will make a lot of mistakes here, but the reason for those mistakes is going to be our inability to comprehend. So prior to these questions, you need to ensure that you are reasonably good at comprehension, or if you're not good, you're at least working towards making your comprehension better. So you need to prioritize comprehension before you switch over to these question types. Okay, so that's how we'd go ahead and work. And now let's come to reading comprehension. So you already know that in the CAT exam for the last 5 years, we get 4 passages. They are taken from a lot of different areas, and each one of those passages gives you different varieties of questions to test your comprehension and some of those other abilities very thoroughly. So what exactly would the syllabus be? If I were to ask you about the RC syllabus, what will you say? What all do you need to do for RC? Ishan says, tricky, absolutely tricky. Yeah? It was a difficult question. I mean, uh, if you look at the labels that we apply to questions, as far as those labels go, it's one of those difficult questions in the CAT exam. So what you are talking about is strategies. You're talking about what it is that you do in order to become better. But what are those things that you're trying to improve? Well, this is going to be a rather detailed discussion. So, when it comes to the RC syllabus, I will leave it for our first RC class. So, in that first RC class, I will tell you that there are 7 things that we master. In fact, 7 plus 1, I'll tell you what that plus 1 is, that you need to become excellent at in order to perform really well in RCs. So I'll give that syllabus to you then. Then let's go ahead and attempt a passage, and hopefully that will give us some clue, right? So I'll share the answers. We can discuss the passage later. Please read this, and once you're done reading this, let me know and I'll take you over to the next question. So the passage that I have for you is a passage that I've taken from CAT 2017 exam. Go ahead, attempt it, read it, and then we'll see. Yash Sojitra, I hope this is, Yash, why are you typing in all caps? I hope this is all intro. In further classes, we'll go from basic to advanced level. Yash, when you attend a class, you get the schedule, right? So if you've seen this class, it is very clearly labeled as Introduction to VARC plus Diagnostic Test. So if that name is any indication, that is what will happen in this class, no? And in further classes, we'll go from basic to advanced. Yes, but not every class will take you to the advanced level. A sum total of all these classes and the work that you perform outside of the classes on the basis of the instructions given to you by the faculty member, that is going to help you take it to the advanced level. Done reading it? Okay, here is the next part. And there is one more slide after this. No, so this is the last slide. So this concludes the passage. Okay, so if you have gone through this, let me now take you over to the question. So here is the first question. Ishan, what you've asked me is related to the approach that we are supposed to adopt to a passage. Let's talk about this in greater detail in our RC classes. Since it's a diagnostic, let's keep it here and do jot down this question. I'll go ahead and answer it later. So what's your take on this question? You have 90 seconds for it. So although the timer is for 2 minutes, we'll move on after 90. What's your take? Akshat, I will talk about these things in our RC class. I will add nuance, I will add detail as we move on. I cannot really give you the detail of everything in a single class. No, we have an entire syllabus to cover, and that is why we have so many classes scheduled together. I'll start with whatever I give to you today, and then with every subsequent class we can add the nuance. We'll add those details. Okay, let's see. We have 30 seconds more, although a lot of answers are already coming in. Pradeep, you are on YouTube, right? So you can use the seeker to go back to the passage. In all our live classes, you can go back in time in your video. So please go back, refer to the passage, answer it, and then move the seeker back again. Okay, so those of us who are confused between C and D, this is not present in the passage. Where does it say that it is less common and more erratic? You wouldn't know that, right? But while a factor, isolation was not as important to speciation as natural selection, you can get it from here. And that is why the best answer choice to this question is going to be option C. Let me give you, some of us have also picked up B. Checker spot butterflies in the 50-acre Jasper Ridge Preserve formed 3 groups that rarely interacted with each other. Those butterflies formed 3 groups. You remember, when you say that the butterflies formed 3 groups, it means that those butterflies chose to separate themselves into 3 groups. Was it a natural phenomenon that made them separate, those 3 groups separate? Huh? Or did the butterflies themselves choose to form 3 groups? Think closely. Okay, so that's how you'd arrive at the right one. Okay, here is the next one. What's your take? Ankush, that's okay. So you have identified a problem. If you could not understand it, it's all right. I'm saying you've identified a problem today. That's what diagnostic means, right? So the correct answer here is option B. And so once again, those of us who are saying that I'm not able to understand anything, see, what do you understand of diagnosis? If you go to a doctor and the doctor says that, hey, you need to get these blood tests done, blood work done. When you get that done, you get to figure out the problem. Once you figure out the problem, the doctor gives you the correct medicine, that is the solution. So, if you could not understand the passage or the questions, you already realized that, hey, I have a problem, and that is my level of comprehension is not there where it should be today. So once you figure this out, you would roll out a plan to enhance your level of comprehension. That's all that it means really. Okay, here is the next question. Okay, so most of us are picking up C, some of us are picking up B, and that's okay. That's all right. So Ella, absolutely yes, you will definitely become better with time. And look at it from two lenses. Okay, there is a lens where you test or where you figure out your comfort level with the passage itself. So if you're able to read the passage fast and you're able to understand it, you're already at an advanced level. When you simply need to figure out, for instance, I'll give you an example. Here is a question. The author discusses this to demonstrate that. So basically the author says that, hey, or the examiner asks us that in the passage we have been given an instance. What is the purpose of that instance? So think of it this way. What is the purpose of an example? An example is given to us in order to prove a point or support a point or elaborate upon a point. So which one of these 4 points gets supported or elaborated by that example? That's going to be your answer. That's a question type specific problem. And the best answer here is C. Nowhere does the passage label evolution controversial. Where is that coming from? How will this support controversial? So we can rule that out. Okay, so those kind of things. So if you are not good, if you're decent at passages, you're struggling with questions, you need to basically adapt or acquire question specific approach or strategies, something that we will go ahead and talk about subsequently. So now the question is, how do we go on to become better? So a lot of reading comprehension is skill based, and therefore one of the key things that you need to start doing is reading. Now your reading should be extensive, which basically means that I'm asking you to read a lot. Second is your reading should be eclectic, which means that you need to bring in a certain amount of diversity to your reading. Now at this juncture, people are going to ask me, sir, what should I read? So here is my answer for you. Read what is a bit challenging for you. Now, what is challenging for you? Will that also necessarily be challenging for someone else? We don't know that, right? So since I'm meeting you for the first time, I do not know what is challenging for you, but you know what is challenging for you. So step 1 will be to maybe, read a newspaper editorial. Which newspaper? You can read the Hindu or the Indian Express. Now, when you read this editorial, you need to take a call. What is that call? I'm saying it needs to be a little challenging for you. So ask yourself, when I read the editorial, am I able to understand some 70-80% of it? If you understand some 70-80% of this editorial, then great, stick to editorials. On the other hand, if that is not the case, you realize that your editorials are easy for me, I'm able to understand most of it. Then it is not something that challenges you, in which case you need to move up. In which case I'd say that you go ahead and read New York Times, you read the Smithsonian, you pick up the Eon essays, whatever challenges you. So the key idea is you are supposed to read things which put you in this zone, in this space. On the other hand, if you read the newspaper editorial and you realize that, oh damn, I am not able to understand it at all, or maybe I understand only 30-40% of it, in which case we will move a step below this. We will say pick up something like India Today and read that. So you need to stay in this sweet spot. Pick up things where you understand around 70-80% of it. And in our first class of reading comprehension, I will go ahead and talk about the kind of sources, the kind of things that you can go ahead and start reading from. Okay. So GYU, how about Times of India? I mean, your call. I'd suggest that you start with the Hindu or the Indian Express, and if you find them tough, you can probably move over to Times of India. So your call. RHITBROTA. How do I pronounce it? Rithbrota, Sarkar. Lot of mysteries, novel. I mean, maybe good. If you're already into reading, great. Can you read books or novels? Absolutely you can. Once again, the idea is, when I say eclectic, you are supposed to bring in diversity. So do not confine yourself to a single genre or a single author. Make sure that you're reading across the genre. And after a while, and then the second thing is this. So if you're reading a book that you are very comfortable reading, then you can read it for pleasure, but it is not something that will help you develop as a reader. So we constantly want to challenge ourselves during these 25 minutes every day. Okay. And the goal is that eventually you can start with fiction, but eventually by November, we want to become very comfortable reading hardcore non-fiction. Okay. So that's the goal. So that's one. Next, master critical reasoning, which is part of verbal reasoning. So we will go ahead and talk about that. Then practice at least 10 passages every week. Start with 10 this week. If you think this is a bit too much, you can even start with 5 to 6 passages, and that's still okay. And then once you start practicing passages, look for patterns in your mistakes. Okay, so if you get you're likely to get some questions wrong. Just try and see, is there a particular type of question that you get wrong more often? If yes, then you want to go ahead and fix that. Then you'd focus on that particular question now. So that's for RC. So just to summarize, all that I have asked you to do so far is reading, vocabulary, grammar. Apart from that, I told you to write every day. So these are the 4 core things that you have on the list at the moment. And nothing is written in stone. Okay. When you start solving passages, when you start attempting questions, there are going to be challenges which are unique to you. So I will work with you. I'll recommend you solutions which are unique to you. Okay, but this is something that is common to all of us. So this is something that I want you to do every day. Now, apart from this, I want you to start with this particular question type called best summary of the paragraph. But when do you start it? You start it after we have gone through the class. Until then, this is what you need to execute. Okay, and in the vocabulary strategy session, I'll add something more. In our RC class, I will add one additional activity apart from these 25 minutes when we meet the next time. So I'll keep adding to it. I'll keep refining it, but this is something that you start when the class takes place. Once you've mastered best summary, you will move over to critical reasoning. And once again, in critical reasoning, you will follow the order that I take the questions. You'll follow the order that I follow in the classes, and when you become good at it, you'll switch over to the rest of the question types. So basically this is going to be a constant. You'll continue doing that every day. After that, the chapters start. So you'll begin here. Once you master this, once your accuracy rate in best summary questions goes above 70%, then you switch over to critical reasoning. And when in each one of these question types you notice that your accuracy rate is now above 70%, you switch over to this, and then this, and then this. So there is a structure that you'd basically follow. Okay, so that is what I expect you to do from now on. So this is what we have gone ahead and talked about today. Look at these questions and the DPP that follows. Attempt it. Don't worry about getting those questions right. I want you to basically figure out two things. Number one, your level of comfort, and number two, in case you are able to figure out your core challenge, it could be comprehension, it could be thinking in a very precise way, whatever it is. Make sure that whatever comes to your mind, whatever pops in your mind, you write it down, and we can then answer these in the subsequent classes. In between the classes, if you have any academic doubt, please use a doubt engine to reach out to us, and we'll take care of those academic doubts. And for all those strategy related queries, extra information, you can post those in this group where I personally go through your queries and reply to them. It's a Telegram group. This is the QR code that you can use to join the group, or if you don't have your phone around right now, you can always do it later, or you can search for the group on Telegram. This is the name of the group. So that's another way of reaching out there. So that's what I had for you today. And if you have any questions now, please make sure that you paste it in the chat or post it in the chat, and I'll go ahead and answer this. But before I sign out, here is something that I wanted you to go through. Your future is created by what you do today and not tomorrow. So every day, what you do is going to determine the result that you're going to eventually have. So make sure that you do keep on doing that. So is Plato's Republic a good start to get into a more difficult read? Yes, Ella, absolutely. It's a good book. You can definitely read it. Dexter, if I only do CAT prep till November, then complete CFA, will my gap year be justified in PI? Resigned in Feb? Yeah, there is no justification for gap year, frankly. Right? But then what is gap? A gap is where you are preparing exclusively on the CAT exam and you are not acquiring skills or competencies that take you towards your long-term career goal. Okay, so in the premier colleges, they are going to ask this question about why you were preparing full-time. And if you don't have a solid answer for this, they are going to make your life difficult. Let's be candid about it. Next class will be on the website or app? Absolutely, yes. All the subsequent classes with me are going to be exclusively on the app. What to read to improve philosophy? Neeru, the question that I would actually want to ask is, are you into reading already? Because if you're not, then you want to start with something that is appropriate for you right now. Okay, philosophy on an average is challenging. On an average, okay, there are of course articles which are easy. So if you're already a good reader and you've identified philosophy as an area of concern, I can help you becoming better there. But then go through the diagnostic test, figure it out, start solving some passages, read, and then we can decide. Ikigai to start with, if you want to, why not? In the next RC class, in the first RC class, I'll tell you, I'll talk about the different websites. I'll talk about the different books that you can start with as a beginner. And in case you want some specific recommendation about a particular area, go ahead, ask, and I'll share that. What I'm asking you to write, Ankush, write anything that comes to your mind. I don't care what you write, but just write. It can be anything. You can simply write about your day. You can get into journaling. You can write about a thought which is running in your mind. You can write, you can pick up one of those VAT topics that IIMs have used and write on that. Whatever you do, doesn't matter. Okay, what else? What else? What else? Atharv, I am not able to understand your message. You can probably rephrase. Anything else? Chaliye, in that case, let us pause here today. I will see you guys in the next class where we will go ahead and pick up a lot of different topics. Neeru, I told you that you go ahead and do whatever you want to do in vocabulary. I will talk about these things in greater detail in our vocab strategy session. Until then, if you want to use word power made easy, absolutely no problem with that. Dexter says, I was in a field I was not content and wanted to pivot. Dexter, a lot of people, in fact, most of the people who opt for MBA, they opt for it because of one of these two reasons. They either want to change their level within the organization or they want to change their industry. And an MBA will help you in achieving those. It will help you do one of these two things. It rarely helps you do both, but it definitely helps you do one of those things, yes. Okay, so if you do go through CFA, then once again, remember I said that gap is when you did not acquire things that connect with your long-term career goal. So if you were acquiring things that connect with your long-term goals, the gap gets justified, right? So, sir, should we copy the syllabus? You said, Rahul, you will get this as a PDF, so you don't need to. Ankush, I could not understand your message. I'm not getting anything. So what will I be doing to be like those people who are answering? Okay. So you were not comfortable with comprehension. Comprehension is a skill. All that you need to do is start reading. So notice what all I shared with you. Start reading. Now what do you read? Something that you understand 70-80% of. Then work on vocabulary, work on grammar, write. Start here. It will take care of everything as the time moves on. Shilpi, absolutely okay to start with that. Okay, so that's it for today. Have a great day ahead and I'll see you guys in the next one now on the app, on the website. Take care. Have a great evening ahead. And if you need me, you can always reach out to me in the Telegram group. And I will share, now there are exactly 33 weeks to go for the CAT. On that group, I will share a 30-week plan for people who are starting their preparation today. That will give you a 3-week buffer as well. So make use of that too. So take care. See you guys. Himanshi, we will talk about eliminating options when we start dealing with the questions. Okay, take care.